Hello, hello everyone. I am Dr. Olympia Papagiorgio. Welcome to my channel where I talk about the intersection of music and psychology. Today we are speaking to Syreeta Butler. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist based out of California. She currently works within a record label and has pioneered a mental health and well-being department and program within it, which is amazing. So welcome, Syreeta. I'm so happy to have you here. Thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Olympia. I really appreciate it.
I am excited to get into the topic of mental well being for musicians and artists and the things that you see in your work, how you stepped into the music industry, and maybe some tips and tricks for artists and musicians, what you think is really important. So, go ahead and tell us a bit about your background and how did you end up stepping into the music industry and ended up at a label?
Well, it actually is not linear. For anyone that is listening and or watching, your path is not going to be linear. So, like mine, like many others. So, I have a degree in psychology and I went through that whole thing. And then I actually have my first career is in community mental health, which is working in underserved and underrepresented populations. And there I saw a lot of different diagnoses, a lot of different people that struggled with mental health challenges, and it was wonderful. I absolutely loved the people, I loved the community, and it was very, very challenging because there's a lot of demand on that job, and not so much from the client side, but really from the agency side. And so I found myself maybe 7.5 to 8 years in, really frustrated and really actually quite burnt out. So I left the profession and did something completely different. And then about 2 to 3 years after that, I came back to the profession. And that's pretty much when my career in not just music but also private practice started. So I started my private practice in 2017, 2018. I knew that I wanted to work with artists. There were a few different situations that happened that I was really struck by and taken aback by. And there were four people who I had known or I had heard about within the music business, and all of them had really tragic deaths. And there was something about that that didn't sit well with me, and I really wanted to understand better what was going on in a organization or an industry where from the outside perspective it looked really glamorous, it looked beautiful, it looked a lot of fun and all of these things, which it is, but they were finding, which I'm sure like many other industries, there were people that were being deeply impacted and to the point of substance use, abuse, addiction, and overdose, or severe depression, or severe mania, and really, and then unfortunately dying by suicide. And so it was really like, what is happening in an industry that for all intents purposes looks really glamorous? And so I started doing some digging, and I kind of got a bit of a buzz around being a therapist that was very non-traditional in my approach to my work. And from there led me to creating or working with and collaborating with a record label that was a joint venture of Universal Music Group and Interscope, called Love Renaissance, that we made the decision to put forth a mental health and wellness actual department and actual program within the structure of the record label. And it was mental health services were offered to the staff, all of the employees, all the executives, and all of the artists. And so that for, and we were able to sustain that during COVID, which was really beautiful because it was really, really needed. And
Yeah.
today,
So, right now, that is where you are. At some point, you had mentioned that you have your own consulting business as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
so what we do is we replicate what we did for Love Renaissance. We do that for other record labels, other advertising companies, other industries altogether in television, film, sports, fashion, and advertising. So what we do is we actually go in and we have real honest conversation with the company, and really get to understand and learn the culture of the company. And from there, we create a guide, if you will, or a plan, a treatment plan for the health of the company. And oftentimes that we create, like I said, the in-house approach. So it's almost, if your listeners are familiar with the TV show Billions, it's kind of like a Wendy Rhodes structure where she is in-house and she provides mental health services to the employees. So we do a combination of not just mental health, not just performance, but also wellness as well. And there's a team, and it's really, really amazing because it allows us to have a very holistic approach to the company structure and the health of an organization, because we're able to see all the different players from the top all the way to just the new employee to the most senior employee, and see how the interaction, see how the culture is. And it gives us a really honest understanding of what the company needs, as well as each employee.
Right. Yeah, because you're in the ecosystem of, yeah, of the business. And I think specifically for being part of or inside of the music industry, kind of the machine of what is happening in the music industry in the background, being in that ecosystem, I can imagine one from just personal experience as, a singer, a performer, and then working in the field, I can imagine that there are some things that are universal that you see that are useful, like useful things that you would provide to artists, even managers, down kind of the ladder, we could say. But also, I would imagine that there are some unique things that probably come up in your work that are specific for musicians and performers who are on larger platforms, who have millions of eyes watching them, if not, hundreds of thousands of eyes watching them. What are the things that come up most often with the individuals that you work with in the industry?
So it's kind of twofold. So there's a part of it where the ecosystem of a company is like an ecosystem of many companies. What I do think is very specific to music is that you're also really understanding and dealing with creatives and the ways in which the creative mind presents itself, which is very different from a person that has a more tech mind or something else. But what I will say is that what I have found throughout my experience in having Just Be is that people, not the ecosystem of the company, but the people are very similar to anyone else. People want to feel loved, people want to feel safe, and people want to feel respected. And so when you kind of narrow things down to that common denominator, it makes it much easier to not look at that said artist that has those millions of eyes or this really large platform. There is a humanity aspect to the music industry that I don't always think gets privileged the way it should, or always gets to be centered. There's a humanity of it and in it. And there's a lot of other things, but the humanity is so important. And I think when we're able to tap into that as a clinician, all the other stuff kind of dissipates and moves out the way.
Right. Yeah, the human piece, you kind of are stripped down of all of these other fancy things, and you're able to see just the human in the room with you, the person in the room with you who is a creative. So you keep all those pieces in mind where you're like, this person is an artist, this person is a creative mind, maybe more sensitive, right? Maybe that comes up a bit. So you're able to navigate that with them. What do you think, speaking to your musician at home or your artist at home, What do you think are some core foundational things that would be important to have and to use for themselves for their own mental well-being?
The first thing, especially for newer artists, and I love working with newer artists, I love having that very much at the beginning stage of a person's career because it is so much easier. I would say easier. It's so much easier to work with a person in creating a strong and a healthy foundation rather than attempting to get someone once they have had all the eyes and have not navigated the incredible pressure of fame to then attempt to prioritize that foundation or restructure that foundation is such a challenge. What I would recommend and what I say to newer artists is start early. Really find someone if you can, if you're in a space, start going to therapy as your star is rising. Before your star rises, find someone, find a tribe, find a community of people that are not reliant on you for their survival, which I know is very cliche. I know there's tons of conversations about that and how people change when money gets involved, when fame gets involved, and it's typically not the artist, it's the people around them. Have a foundation of people whose success, whose livelihood does not rely on you. That's the first thing. I would really like to invite your listeners and your viewers to understand the importance of having a healthy relationship or as healthy of a relationship as you can to social media and using it as a tool rather than your life. And I know that if you're 30 and under, that's a really challenging task. I, being older than 30, recognize and know a world when there was no internet. And so there isn't as much of a reliant that I have as though others do. Developing a healthy, healthier relationship with social media because what I realize is that social media, and it doesn't even have to be people that are famous, it builds you up only to be really excited to tear you down. And your ego strength, when it isn't strong, virtually impossible to withstand that particular machine. So I ask people and invite people to not go on social media first thing in the morning. Have a routine outside of checking your phone. Not even social media, just checking your phone. Go use the restroom first. Brush your teeth first. Maybe eat a little something because we are much less susceptible to be reactive to things when we are satiated. Do the things, have a self care routine or just a routine that has nothing to do with a device.
Okay.
As you can.
Right. You're building those habits from the beginning.
Do that before you shoot into the stratosphere with fame. I really try to encourage new artists to be mindful of your sleep. Rest. There's so much that happens during naps and sleeping. It's like literally magic. So the more you can sleep, and I'm not speaking to I'm having a depressive episode and all I want to do is sleep all day, but I'm really talking about rest, resting your mind, resting your body, finding things that have nothing to do with your artistry, and being able to find joy in who you are and
Yeah.
being able to is so valuable.
You said something too that really resonated with me. Obviously, you don't want to oversleep, you don't want to undersleep. There's kind of like you want to find this middle place. And I think as a creative, it's really challenging because Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and you have a melody and you have a song, you have words that have come up all of a sudden, and you grab your phone. You want to record a voice memo of whatever you just thought of, and then you record the voice memo, and then you get so excited about the song that your heart starts racing and your mind starts racing, and then you struggle to go back to sleep. I mean, that has happened before. It is difficult to get yourself to go back to bed. It's almost like having that kind of brain. It's a blessing and a curse in a way, because you wake up with all this creative, juice, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I can't go to sleep now and I have things I have to do tomorrow. So building those habits, they're hard to implement, but like you said, they're really vital foundationally. Something else you said too, and I want to get your thoughts on this specifically. I think it's interesting. You can feel burnout from doing the creative thing you love.
100%. 100%. Especially when that thing that you love becomes your job, and a thing that not only sustains you but sustains other people, i.e., family members, i.e., managers, i.e., et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the thing that used to bring joy and that you did to as a form of an expression, it now has something tied to it. That is in and of itself, I would use the word, but maybe artists wouldn't. There's a grieving process that comes for some with the loss of this thing being so special. And I think it happens in those quiet moments with artists. It may not happen at the beginning, it may not happen in the middle. It happens in a variety of different places and spaces for artists, but I think eventually most artists have this complicated relationship with their artistry that they have to then, which is sad.
Almost like a tug of war with the thing that brings you a lot of joy because of all of these other elements, especially if you're bound by contract or something, if there's something else that's kind of binding you. But I think even on an independent level, that can be very stressful. You feel an internal pressure to keep going, and you hope that something comes from it. You hope that you get that feedback. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Then you get tired, but then you love the craft.
Many people have a complicated relationship with the business of music. It's not the music itself, it's all the ancillary things that make this art form go, that oftentimes may not even be shared with other artists. It takes a lot of different types of people to make up the business of music. And that is conflictual at times as well. And because I think that it's important to give your viewers helpful hints and gems, I think it can be really valuable to, and this is something that I've been working in my own private practice with my clients that I have that are artists, is really understanding how seasons work. We are not robots. We are not meant to be in a creative storm all year round. And this is why rest is really valuable and really important, because you have on a micro space, kind of like the seasons where it's like, okay, I wake up, and I do my thing. And then as my time starts to wind down, I get tired and then I go to sleep and then I do it again. There's an internal clock with that. There's also if you're thinking about how you relate to the seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall, do all four of those seasons do very different things. And so if we're able to understand that as an organism on this thing called Earth, we are a part of this bigger ecosystem, that even in the macro space, this ecosystem makes the decision to hibernate. And everything, the leaves fall, everything kind of stops, and there's a restful period in the world if you're in winter. And then things are dormant, things are laying beneath the surface. Things are still alive, things are still going, but it's slower. And then there's an emergence when spring hits of things growing, things becoming vibrant, things, really having this magic that happens. Plants, flowers, bugs, all these things kind of emerge, and it's like, whoo, glad that's over. And then you have summer where it's like everything and everyone's just kind of frolicking, and it's a kind of a big party. And then you have fall where you're planting these seeds for the following year to be harvested, and you're picking things. And so if we understand that we are a part of that greater ecosystem, I think it could be really valuable to be able to take that in and see how that can apply to us when our are saying, hey, it's time to rest.
Yeah.
It's time to go. It's time to plant those seeds. It's time to turn up.
Right. Right. I love the example of the seasons and that they serve a purpose. And you said two really important things. One is the music business, I think, is the most complicated piece for creatives in many ways. Creativity can be healing in lots of ways. And I do think we have internal demands on ourselves. And it depends, I was going to say it kind of depends on the level of maybe where you are in the industry, but even on a smaller level, no, like we have internal demands as independent artists. And then at the same time, no matter where you are, those human pieces again of, hey, the world has seasons to plant those seeds so that it can celebrate spring and summer. And you deserve that too. And I think that goes into the importance of self compassion and self forgiveness. If you don't show up in fall the way that you exactly wanted, you didn't plant the seeds exactly how you wanted. Maybe you didn't write the 3, 4 songs that you wanted to in the 2 months that you put on your timeline. And so you beat yourself up or something about it. It's like that self compassion piece, I think, is so important to be nice to yourself.
Grace is biggest, the biggest breath of fresh air. You are able to truly breathe in grace and compassion for not only yourself or not only others, but for yourself. Life becomes a little easier to do in all and on the spectrum. That thing doesn't become as debilitating or as big when you say, okay, okay, I surrender. This didn't, or whatever the expectation, cool. And it may not be your season for that particular thing. We do a lot of planning, we do a lot of strategizing, we do a lot of goal setting, which is beautiful. But we also have to make the room for the humanity.
For ourselves and for others. We got to make space for us to show up as actual human beings. And that, I think we forget that a lot because we're always going back to productivity. And that could be because of societal pressures. It could be from family pressures of like the financial burdens that come up. And you mentioned this idea of acceptance, surrendering, and just being like, yeah, you know what? I am human. I'm not going to be perfect at this. Accepting that that's true. You are human and you can't control every aspect of what's happening in the industry or what's happening to your music. You might put a song out and it might get under 100 streams, under 1,000 streams as an independent, which happens very often. I think most often really for independent artists. And instead of sitting there and saying, "Oh, why didn't it get better? Why didn't it reach more?" Just being like, "I did what I did. I am proud of that song, and that is enough."
I think the beautiful thing, and I quote this often, Quincy Jones says, no one ever knows what's going to be a hit.
Mm. We need that reminder. We need that reminder.
No one ever knows what's going to be a hit. No matter how arrogant and how ego filled it is, no one can predict a hit. And if that is being told by the man who has like the most Grammys on the planet, I think I might want to listen. I mean, I know that it's not, Grammys are not the litmus of greatness. However, we may want to take heed to wisdom when it's so simple. We often complicate things.
I was going to say the simplicity of that is beautiful and actually it's relieving. Like there's relief in that. You cannot predict that. And if we sit and try to predict, we might just get ourselves in a tizzy about, well, is something going to happen with this song or something like that? And then you end up setting this really high standard for yourself. And then if it doesn't reach that, then you start to beat up on yourself instead of granting yourself that patience and self-compassion. And another thing that I think is useful, and I wonder if you talk about this too, is gratitude.
Joy, joy. Because what I have been so fortunate to be so close to things that I perceive as greatness and people that I perceive as fantastic. Like I have been in intimate spaces with that and breathing that and looking out into a crowd from the side of the stage at Wireless Fest in the UK while you can feel the
Wow.
energy of everyone singing along or everyone being completely focused on one person. The joy, not that necessarily brings, but the fact that it resonates so much with a group of people. If we don't find spaces where gratitude fits in there or joy fits in there, then what's the point? If your artistry does not first bring you joy, then what's the point? And I really would love people to answer that question to themselves. Like, really, what's the point? What is it for? If it isn't for joy, we are here on this planet. I think we are designed to leave this place better than we found it. I really think that's kind of like our ultimate mission as best as we can. Now, there's a whole lot of people that may disagree with that and have counterpoints, and there are plenty of people throughout history that have not upheld that. However, music literally changes the brain waves. That is powerful. You want us to understand, this is a controversial word, but I'll use it anyway, the responsibility in that.
We kind of talked about a few things: habit building, getting sleep, creating a healthier relationship with social media. Maybe they seem like small things, but really the impact is immense. I think we underestimate the impact of those small steps. What would be an example? Maybe it's the things we just talked about, right? Like forgiveness, self compassion, gratitude, like those pieces, I think can translate and communicate self love to us. Was there anything else that you were thinking about when you're thinking of self love?
I think many people, whether internally or externally, have had moments in their life when they didn't feel safe. Safety is so valuable. And being able to walk through the world with a certain level of safety is a revolutionary concept. I don't know a person who that has been foundationally a part of their life because of so many external factors. But I do believe that there is a space that if you have kids or if you're working with, say, an artist, like the value of safety, being able to have someone, no matter what they come to me with, I do my very best as the person in their life I try to bring stability or at least have some resemblance of stability and safety. And that also, I believe, rewires the brain. You have someone that can really provide that intrinsically, and you then being able to do it for yourself, it heals that childhood wound.
The consistency, this stable, consistent person that you're going to, how beautiful to be that person for yourself in the end and do those things that communicate that you are important, you are valued, you have purpose, all of those messages that can change how we wake up and look at our day and look at ourselves and how we function throughout the day. And then hopefully then translate into the work that we do, the music that we make, how we communicate with other creatives around us too, especially if they're like creative differences, how we can communicate those things with patience and gratitude and forgiveness and compassion. All of those pieces that feel so complicated in so many ways can be really simple. And that's kind of what I'm getting from you today, this message of let's not overcomplicate this, let's make this really simple for ourselves.
Sometimes I think in lyrics,
Mm-hmm.
and the lyric that comes as you were saying that was Lauryn Hill's, it could all be so simple, but you rather make it hard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
She said hard. But that just
Right.
right,
Just that.
that it could all be so simple, but we rather make it hard because we have been sold, and I truly believe this, and maybe in the business, some of the business of music has given us the idea that music is at its best when you are broken or from a sad space or in a space where your anxiety or your depression or your paranoia is at a all-time high. That's when you make the best music. And I truly have seen the dangers and the lack of sustainability creating from that space. It is not sustainable and there is very little longevity in it. And so, what I am attempting to provide space for is this notion of I can still communicate and write and create art that highlight or illustrate a point in time when I was feeling pain. However, when I come to that space and time or that artistry from a healed place, there's a richness that is created in that song because I'm not so in it. I'm able to have a different perspective and really see it from all sides in a full dimension, in a fully holistic space rather than this particular way. And that is powerful. It allows the artist to not get stuck and be held hostage by those negative emotions. That's where the danger and the addiction comes from.
That is fascinating. You're seeing it. You're seeing it in your work. That's what's so interesting.
The last thing that I would say, it's about everyone in the ecosystem. And I think that this is really valuable, and particularly for artists. When you get to a place where you're gigging and you eventually are going on tour, everyone is a part of making your dream come to life. And the amount of responsibility that artists you have to also understand that people are leaving their families. People are internally struggling with their own things and still putting your vision and prioritizing it. Going on as many tours as I've been on, recognizing that as well. And so what I did is I have a partner, we created a company called BTS Wellness, which is behind the scenes wellness. We provide mental health as well as physical health support to tours and festival, not just for the artists, but for the collective tour, for the collective festival. So if you're in lighting, if you're a gaffer, if you're in production, you also matter. And it's important for them to be treated with a level of dignity and respect just as we would if you are the main artist on the bill. Everyone sacrifices to do something that is completely, ooh, what's the word that I would want to use? Not for the faint of heart. I don't want to
Mm.
say it's wrong, but road life is a very special kind of life. And it's not for the faint of heart. There is a particular type of person that is successful on the road. And there is a lot of literature that is coming out regarding the struggles that being away from family for long periods of time, how that struggle can impact your psyche. I want us as the collective community and the artists that listen and watch you to understand that it is a community. It's an ecosystem that help you get your art out.
To help you pursue what's so important to you. There are thousands of pieces and people, hundreds, thousands, it depends on how big we're talking, that are part of that system to support you, to push you forward as the artist. Even if it's only you go to a studio and you have your engineer, maybe a producer with you, the way that you interact with them, the support that they need because they're taking time also to be there to create for you and with you. So our interactions with each other is just is just as important, and what you're doing is vital because you're seeing the need across the system, not just the artist, and emphasizing the importance of that. Yeah, that was absolutely. Yeah.
And understanding that. I think that is, so pay your songwriters, pay your producers, pay your engineers, give them the appropriate points on records, do right by people. That is a part of making this ecosystem healthier and stronger and more vibrant because there's enough out here for everyone, treated with dignity and respect and humanity. That's my hope for the future of the business of music.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for giving us all of that information and the perspective to kind of shift some of that thinking, that thought process around what it is to be an artist, who it is that we work with, that we interact with, all of those extra pieces that are not just singular, maybe in our heads, but beyond that, outside of who we are, outside of us too. Can you tell us what was the first concert that you ever went to, or a really memorable moment for you in music that you'd like to share?
I think the power of music just happened on my face
Mm.
because as you were speaking about a time that is memorable, I instantly became happy.
Oh.
Joy actually overtook my body and I expressed it through such a genuine smile
Mm.
and such a unconscious response just with the thought, just with the thought, like how in real time how powerful is what we're talking about,
Right,
that something like music can evoke the thought that completely changes my mood to immense joy
right.
just by thinking of it. I haven't even said it what it is.
Right, just thinking.
Just thinking about it. And now that joy has translated to you because even in the way in which I'm communicating about it, it is bringing joy to you.
Yes, absolutely. It's so fun.
That just felt
Mm.
no one gets anything else out of our conversation today. That is the power of music.
Hmm.
That's what music does.
Yeah,
For all the other things, that's what music does.
yeah,
So now I will share um, my fondest memory, or my it was first concert.
yeah.
What? So my I believe it is it my first concert. I think my, no, it's my second concert. So my mom and I had just a mom-daughter date, and she dressed me up. Um, my mom loved dressing me up. And we went to see Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation tour. I dressed like Janet. So from Rhythm Nation, so I had the black hat, I had the black jeans, had a Rhythm Nation t-shirt, and my mom gave me a little hoop earring and put like our mail key on it, completely decked out. I lost my mind. Lost my mind. And to be able to see someone that, you know, you see on TV and to see them, I think that's where my love for live music happened. My mother is a huge music person. My name is Syreeta, but my full name is Syreeta Patrice Butler. My mom, named me Syreeta after Stevie Wonder's wife and music collaborator. Her name is Syreeta Wright.
Oh, wow.
Her voice is completely angelic. I recommend when you think of joy and when you think of safety and just like sweetness, um, her voice comes to mind.
Oh.
It's almost Joni Mitchell
Hmm.
like tone. So it's very, very sweet. So my middle name is Patrice, which is from a artist, and her name is Patrice Rushen, who is a fantastic artist and conductor and pianist and just all around wonder human. And these are the two people that that is my namesake. I can't sing worth a damn. I play an instrument. Like I was watching something and they opened up sheet music and I was just like it literally, it does not compute. But of love and what music does to me,
Mm.
I think that I was destined at birth to do the work in the capacity that I do it in
Oh,
because I understand and recognize is that artists and particularly musicians and creatives give so much of themselves.
oh
Some
my.
of them give their life literally for our not just entertainment but our healing. And that's heavy. It feels like ultimate sacrifice
Yeah, that
because
is
all
heavy.
that come with that.
Thank you for sharing. You have found your place. It sounds like, and it looks like you have really found your place. And that's a beautiful space to be in. As a clinician, a person who appreciates music, who loves the people who work within music, understands all the layers within that ecosystem of either the specific label or just the music business, right? Like the nuances. I know that it's going to be beneficial to artists that are watching and musicians that are watching all these amazing little gems of how to take care of themselves and how to protect who they are. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And really anytime and anything that you need, I got you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We appreciate you joining us today. We'll be back in the future with more, and we'll see you later. Bye.